Western democracies have eliminated their enemies using their intelligence agencies. Western nations also bombed and invaded other nations to eliminate their enemies, even though the process killed innocent civilians. On the other hand, even though India has shown concern about the presence of terrorists and extremists in Canada, the Western world seems to be trying to protect Canada. But enough is enough. Finally, it is time to uncover the dirty sides of Canada that the world should know.
Point 1. For a long time, Canada has been used as a safe haven by numerous war criminals, Nazis and terrorists. Before Khalistanis could even reach Canada, many Nazis had already made Canada their home sweet home. Josef Kirschbaum, who was a top official in the Nazi puppet regime that governed Slovakia during World War II, found his home in Canada. The Nazi collaborator Antanas Kenstavicius, who, with other men, murdered 5,000 Jews in 6 days, found his home sweet home in Canada. Wolfgang Drege, a notorious neo-Nazi and white supremacist, was born in Germany but eventually found his home sweet home in Canada. He was also a part of the neo-Nazis and KKK members who wanted to invade Dominica, overthrow the Dominican government and turn it into an Aryan homeland. For your information, here is Dominica and here is Canada. According to the renowned Nazi hunter Stephen Rambam, there are still about 8,000 European war criminals with blood on their hands in Canada. Mind you, these are people who collaborated with the Nazis and facilitated in the murder of Jews. Shouldn't Canada be held accountable for sheltering Nazi criminals? And yes, as described here, Canadian authorities came under criticism for their lack of aggressiveness in investigating and prosecuting suspected war criminals. Criminals and terrorists from various parts of the world have found their home in Canada. As observed here, even many Slovak extremists found refuge in Canada. Canada's racist movement has long been present, but unfortunately, many have tried to hide this from the world. Point 2. Racism and discrimination are deeply ingrained in the so-called liberal democracy. Even Justin Trudeau wasn't able to deny that.
Black Canadians and racialized Canadians face discrimination as a lived reality every single day. There is systemic discrimination in Canada, which means our systems treat Canadians of color, Canadians who are racialized, differently than they do others.
Point 3. I want to ask you this. What should we expect from a country whose Prime Minister himself has been described as a narcissistic, controlling, fascist sociopath? And as observed here, Justin Trudeau is a disgrace for any democracy.
Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
I mean, have you forgotten these scenes? Point 4. Take a look at this map shared by Professor Tanhum, who holds a PhD from Harvard University. It seems that Canada is a criminal state that is brutally sucking out money and resources through its neocolonization in Africa. Toronto is a city built on mining. Nearly 75% of mining companies globally are headquartered in Canada. This business involves atrocities and serious environmental crimes. Neocolonization is just a way of life. Canada in Africa, 300 years of aid and exploitation. This book explains how Canada has been an imperialist abuser of human rights. Point 5. It seems that Canada loves to be a partner in crime. It was observed that Canada supplied $5.8 billion worth of arms to countries classed as dictatorships. Canada, how can you even call yourself a liberal democracy? All this looks like nothing but criminals and their hypocrisy. Point 6. Take a look at this. It is a Canadian postage stamp that is celebrating the massive size of the British Empire. It has been observed that when countries in the global south were fighting for independence, Canada supported the European empires on numerous occasions. Canada, can you run away from that truth? Point 7. Canada seems to be nothing but a result of the ongoing European expansionism. Canada is sitting on something that has been described as stolen land or land that was acquired deceitfully through treaties that were not even honored. Canada, can you run away from that truth? And by the way, when those treaties were signed, there were occasions when signatories from indigenous communities could not even read English and had to depend on an interpreter. As described here, indigenous communities have not received billions of dollars that Canada owes them. And yes, even today in Canada, discrimination and oppression of Aboriginals on their own land continues. And yes, many of them live in abysmal conditions, sometimes lacking access to clean drinking water. Can the world forget how Canada committed genocide against Indigenous peoples? Can the world forget about the unmarked graves of children that Canada was caught sitting on? Can the world forget about the kidnapping of Indigenous children in Canada in a joint effort by churches and the government? Even today, the culture of rape and sexual violence against women and children continues in Canada. And as far as Indigenous women and girls are concerned, thousands of them have been murdered or gone missing. Point 8. White supremacy justified the violence of slavery for hundreds of years. As observed here, slavery was a part of Canada's colonial nation building for over 200 years. And the slave trade created racist stereotypes and biases that live on in Canadian society even now. And yes, the church were also slave owners. Point 9. Separatist movements in Canada. Remember, Canada is a colonial criminal state sitting on stolen land or land acquired through deceit. Various separatist movements are going on within the country. How would Canada feel if other countries decided to interfere in that? Point 10. Khalistan. Pakistan, a rogue state, is known as the global hub of terrorism, and despite that, Canada has not taken a proper action against something that has been described as a project of Pakistan. The Milevsky report mentions that it's Pakistanis, not Khalistanis, who are driving the campaign, and their motives are not necessarily pure. How can Canada tolerate that? According to this report by the Pew Research Center, Sikhs are overwhelmingly proud of their Indian identity. As you can see, here 95% of Sikhs say they are very proud to be Indian, and 70% of Sikhs say a person who disrespects India cannot be a Sikh. And as reported here, in India, most Sikhs do not see evidence of widespread discrimination against their community. But why is Canada hosting these Khalistanis? Is it Canada's neo-colonial agenda that allows it to be able to hold the sensitive nerve of a formerly colonized nation from the global south? Before I sign off, I want to send a message to Canada. Canada, knowingly or unknowingly, you have given refuge to war criminals, Nazis and terrorists in your country. But when these persecuted Jews and children came to your door in a ship, you turned them away. On the other hand, Mother India embraced thousands of Jews who found safety and were welcomed when they fled the Holocaust carried out by Nazis in Europe. The truth is that these Western democracies are not liberal democracies. They seem more like criminal democracies. They are just more cunning, deceitful, and they know how to cover up their crimes using their hard and soft power. In many ways, Canada is the total opposite of what it claims to be. But Canada can't lie or hide its real side forever. So, is Canada the new Pakistan? Well, it seems that it's far worse. Because it is richer and seems to be an integral part of the gang of the Western colonial criminal states. Apart from being a safe haven for many global terrorists, extremists or war criminals, it is also a powerful colonial criminal state sitting on stolen land or land that was acquired through deceit. It is a partner in crime with other Western colonial criminal states, and its foundation is built on the blood and misery of the indigenous communities and its Christian supremacist colonial designs. As described here, Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God. Supremacy of a monotheistic Christian God? What a naked display of Canada's so-called secularism! See you again!